The Young and the Restless spoilers. Breaking news: the return of Tucker McCall. The atmosphere in Genoa City shifted the moment Tucker McCall announced his return. For years, he had stayed away, leaving behind whispers of a turbulent past and unresolved relationships. But now, he was back, and his presence immediately reignited tensions, none more so than with Diane Jenkins. Diane had worked tirelessly to rebuild her life after years of scandal. Her relationship with Jack Abbott and her place within the Abbott family had finally begun to stabilize. But Tucker's return threatened to unravel everything. He wasn't just an old acquaintance, he was the keeper of a devastating secret, one that could destroy Diane's carefully constructed life and shatter the Abbott family's foundation. A complicated history. Years earlier, Diane and Tucker had shared a tumultuous and clandestine relationship. Their connection was magnetic but dangerous, a passionate affair conducted in the shadows. While Jack Abbott had been Diane's public partner, it was Tucker who had been her confidant and, at times, her lover. They shared stolen moments, secret plans, and even a few kisses that Diane had successfully hidden from Jack. But their relationship wasn't just about romance, it was built on mutual ambition and a willingness to manipulate circumstances for their benefit. Tucker had always been drawn to power, and Diane's connection to the Abbotts made her an intriguing ally. Diane, meanwhile, saw Tucker as both a source of protection and a potential threat. When Tucker chose to leave Genoa City, he did so under the guise of giving Diane the peace she craved. But their parting was far from amicable. Tucker left with knowledge that could ruin Diane's life, the truth about Kyle's paternity. The secret Tucker holds for years, the Abbott family had believed that Kyle was Jack's biological son, making him the rightful heir to Jabot. But Tucker had long suspected otherwise. During his time away, he had quietly pursued the truth, conducting a DNA test that confirmed his suspicions. Tucker McCall, not Jack Abbott, was Kyle's biological father. Diane had begged Tucker to keep this revelation to himself. She knew that if the truth came out, it would not only destroy Jack but also devastate Kyle. More importantly, it would jeopardize Kyle's position as the heir to Jabot, a legacy Diane was determined to protect. For Diane, Kyle's connection to Jack wasn't just about family, it was about securing a future of influence and stability for her son. Let Kyle stay where he belongs, Diane had pleaded with Tucker. Let him be Jack's son. Once he's solidified his place at Jabot, you can have whatever you want. Just don't ruin this for him. Tucker, however, wasn't one to wait. The idea of Kyle growing up as someone else's son, carrying another man's legacy, gnawed at him. Now that he was back in Genoa City, he intended to reclaim what he believed was rightfully his. Diane's desperation. Tucker's reappearance sent Diane into a state of panic. She knew that if he got too close to Kyle, the truth would inevitably come out. Tucker wasn't the type to play by anyone's rules but his own, and Diane's pleas for discretion only seemed to embolden him. Diane confronted Tucker in private, her tone laced with both anger and fear. "Stay away from Kyle," she hissed. "You've done enough damage already. Don't ruin his life just to satisfy your ego." Tucker's response was calm but cutting. "His life? Or yours, Diane? Let's not pretend this is about Kyle. This is about you keeping your perfect little world intact. But guess what? That's over. I'm done hiding." Tucker's plan. Tucker wasn't just interested in revealing the truth, he had a larger plan in motion. By exposing Kyle's true paternity, Tucker saw an opportunity to disrupt Jack's empire and stake his own claim within Genoa City. If Kyle were proven to be his son, Tucker would have leverage over both Diane and the Abbotts. But Tucker's motives weren't entirely selfish. Deep down, he wanted a relationship with Kyle. He wanted to be part of his son's life, to make up for the years he had missed. For Tucker, this wasn't just about power, it was about family, even if his methods were ruthless. Jack's world unravels. The possibility of Kyle not being his biological son would be devastating for Jack. His bond with Kyle was one of the few constants in his life, a relationship he cherished above all else. For Jack, the idea that Tucker could swoop in and claim Kyle as his own was unthinkable. As the tension between Diane and Tucker escalated, Jack began to notice Diane's growing anxiety. Her evasiveness, her sudden need to keep Tucker at arm's length, it all pointed to something deeper. When Jack finally confronted Diane, her hesitation spoke volumes. "What aren't you telling me?" Jack demanded. "What does Tucker have on you?" Diane's silence was deafening. Kyle's future Kyle, oblivious to the storm brewing around him, continued to work alongside his father at Jabot. But as whispers of Tucker's secret began to circulate, Kyle couldn't ignore the tension any longer. When he finally learned the truth, his world was turned upside down. The man he had idolized, the father he had built his life around, might not be his biological father after all. The revelation threatened to drive a wedge between Kyle and the Abbotts, leaving him torn between loyalty to the family who raised him and the undeniable connection to his biological father. Tucker, meanwhile, saw this as his chance to forge a relationship with Kyle, though his aggressive tactics only served to alienate him further. The showdown. As Tucker prepared to reveal the truth, Diane realized she was out of time. Desperate to protect her son and salvage her relationship with Jack, she made one last attempt to stop Tucker. But Tucker was resolute. "You had your chance, Diane," Tucker said, his voice cold. "I won't let my son live a lie any longer. Kyle deserves to know the truth." The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation, with the truth threatening to tear apart the Abbott family, redefine Kyle's identity, and reshape the power dynamics of Genoa City. Whether Tucker's motives were rooted in love or ambition, one thing was certain: the revelation would leave no one unscathed. The message that changed everything. Diane Jenkins's hands trembled as she read the text message. The name on the screen, Tucker McCall, sent a chill down her spine. It was short, direct, and devastating. "I'm coming back to Genoa City. It's time Kyle knows the truth." The blood drained from Diane's face. Tucker's return could ruin everything she had worked so hard to build. After years of being the outcast, Diane had finally clawed her way back into the Abbott family's good graces. Jack had forgiven her, Kyle respected her, and the Abbotts had accepted her as one of their own. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, and Diane was determined to keep it that way. But Tucker's message threatened to upend her fragile new reality. He had no sense of timing, no regard for the chaos his return would bring. Diane had spent years burying the truth. Tucker now seemed intent on exposing that Kyle Abbott might not be Jack's biological son. The confrontation. Diane wasted no time. She called Tucker and demanded a meeting, desperate to stop him from blowing up her life. They met late at night in an empty office building, a fitting setting for the storm brewing between them. As soon as Tucker arrived, Diane launched into him. "What are you doing, Tucker? Why are you coming back now? I've worked so hard to rebuild my life. Do you have any idea what this will do to Kyle? To Jack?" Tucker smirked, leaning casually against the doorframe. "Oh, Diane, always so dramatic. I gave you years to handle this your way. I stayed away, I kept quiet, and look where it's gotten me, on the sidelines, watching my son call another man dad. I'm done waiting." Diane's voice cracked with desperation. "Kyle doesn't need to know. He's happy, Tucker. He has a life, a family, don't take that away from him." Tucker's expression hardened. "You're not protecting Kyle, Diane. You're protecting yourself. You're terrified that if the truth comes out, Jack and the Abbotts will see you for the manipulative liar you've always been." The words cut deep, but Diane refused to back down. "I've changed, Tucker. I'm not that person anymore." "Maybe," Tucker said with a shrug. "But secrets like this have a way of surfacing, Diane. Better it comes from me than someone else." Diane's plan. As Tucker left, Diane was left reeling. She couldn't let him destroy everything she'd built. If he told Kyle the truth, it would be catastrophic, not just for her but for the entire Abbott family. Jack would be heartbroken, Kyle would feel betrayed, and the trust Diane had painstakingly rebuilt would shatter. Diane decided she had to act. She began laying the groundwork to discredit Tucker, spinning a narrative that would paint him as a manipulative opportunist. If Tucker exposed the truth, Diane needed the Abbott family to believe that he was doing it for his own gain, not because it was the right thing to do. At the same time, Diane resolved to prepare Kyle for the possibility of a storm ahead. She didn't tell him the truth outright, but she began dropping hints about Tucker's history of deceit and his tendency to create chaos wherever he went. Kyle's growing suspicion. Kyle, meanwhile, couldn't ignore the tension building around him. His mother's sudden nervousness, her late-night phone calls, and her cryptic warnings about Tucker all pointed to something bigger. When Tucker finally arrived in Genoa City, Kyle found himself caught between two powerful forces. His loyalty to his mother and his curiosity about the man claiming to be his biological father. At first, Kyle dismissed Tucker's assertions as baseless. Jack had always been his father, the man who raised him and taught him everything he knew. But as Tucker began to provide evidence, DNA tests, timelines, and memories Diane had never shared, Kyle started to question everything he thought he knew about his identity. Jack's heartbreak. The revelations didn't just affect Kyle. For Jack, the idea that Kyle might not be his biological son was devastating. Jack had poured his heart and soul into being a father to Kyle, and the thought of losing that connection was unbearable. When Jack confronted Diane, she broke down, pleading for his understanding. "Jack, you are Kyle's father in every way that matters. Biology doesn't change that." But Jack's hurt was palpable. "Why didn't you tell me, Diane? Why did you let Kyle believe, something that might not be true?" "I wanted to protect you," Diane insisted. "Both of you. I never meant for this to come out." Tucker's true motives. While Diane was fighting to keep her family intact, Tucker had his own agenda. For him, this wasn't just about claiming his place in Kyle's life, it was about reclaiming power. Tucker had always been a man who thrived on control, and the knowledge of Kyle's true parentage was his trump card. By exposing the truth, Tucker aimed to destabilize the Abbott family and insert himself into their world. He wanted to be part of Kyle's life, yes, but he also wanted leverage over Jack, Diane, and the Abbotts as a whole. Tucker didn't just want to shake things up, he wanted to emerge as the victor. The coming battle. As tensions reached a boiling point, it became clear that a major confrontation was inevitable. Kyle, torn between his love for Jack and his curiosity about Tucker, struggled to find his footing. Jack, desperate to protect his family, braced himself for the fallout. And Diane, caught in the middle, fought to hold her world together as it threatened to crumble around her. For Tucker, the coming battle wasn't just about revealing a secret, it was about redefining his place in Genoa City. But for Diane and Kyle, it was a fight for their very sense of identity. Would Tucker's return bring clarity or chaos? Would the truth set anyone free, or would it only deepen the fractures within the Abbott family? One thing was certain, Genoa City would never be the same.